Welcome to the program, Charles Moscowitz, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stan Caterbone is here. He's back for a return visit so we can check in with his case. I don't really want to specifically talk about your pro se law case, Stan, but I do want to talk as a matter of public interest in your story of how you have been persecuted as a whistleblower by some very heavy-handed government action. So give us a quick thumbnail on what's the latest with your case, with what you're going through.
Well, the latest is that I'm still litigating in several courts. I virtually don't have access. I mean, my mail's tampered with and orders I don't receive. I don't know if the clerks don't send them or what. And I guess I probably have about 8 cases that are active and live regarding litigation, regarding COINTELPRO and mind control and things like that. The whistleblowing, just to give you a brief rundown, the whistleblowing started in 1987 when I blew the whistle on a firm called ISC, International Signal Control, who was a defense contractor who was selling weapons, most notably to Saddam Hussein, the cluster bomb that they developed and patented.
And
So I blew the whistle.
they were doing that behind the back of Congress and the government, right?
No, they were actually doing it in sync with the NSA and the CIA.
I see.
They tied the CIA into it.
But did Congress know about it? I mean, did the
no, it was a black ops. It was,
okay.
quiet program.
Understood.
So it was covert. It was covert.
So
But
they
the
were doing
problem,
arms deals to Saddam Hussein in the 1980s, and you were working as a contractor that had an affiliation with that with the arms deal. You blew the whistle on it.
well, I had built a financial firm, and they had come to. I was already a shareholder since 1982,
Right.
and I built a financial firm, and they wanted me to finance some operations. So I called some public officials up and raised hell, and they came down on me hard with COINTELPRO like tactics. But what I didn't know back then is my father was already a victim of MK Ultra, and so was my brother. So I attracted the attention of Intel, DOD, and everybody else, as well as FBI and people like that.
Okay, so this was at a time when MK Ultra was already being somewhat exposed. There was the church committee hearings in the late 1970s. MK Ultra, in a nutshell, was a CIA program launched back in the 1940s, officially, that basically dealt with issues of psyop, mind control, manipulation. And there were experiments done on people. The most famous one of which there was a television movie, and that was the Olson case, where they put LSD in his coffee and he committed suicide, and other similar operations. In the 1960s, they were involved with Timothy Leary and Ram Dass and psychologist Dr. Jolyon West, basically distributing LSD, in the street, getting people as a public experiment. So, this was all part of this, various means of manipulating people. It's kind of, I guess that maybe by today's standards, there could be some similarities drawn, at least philosophically, with the transhumanism movement.
Yeah, it's the program was supposed to have been shut down in 73, 74 with the church hearings. But
Right.
essentially what they did was they moved the program to the Department of Defense, covertly, black ops programs.
Mhm.
And a lot of the programs are continued against the knowledge of Congress purposefully. You see what they do to whistleblowers who speak out about this. We all get persecuted,
Right.
tortured, imprisoned, and the like.
Yeah, we were supposed to, at that time, we were supposed to have whistleblower laws to protect people like you who were blowing the whistle. Sounds to me like the only whistleblower that's ever really been protected was the one that claimed that he talked to someone third hand who had heard a conversation between President Trump and the Ukrainian premier. He has absolute protection. He's fine. You even
Yeah.
mention his name in public, you could be banned. I mean, I think Senator Rand Paul actually mentioned his name in the well of the U.S. Senate during public hearings, and he was banned. So if you're not him, and we're not mentioning his name here, you don't get protection, and you certainly haven't, Stan.
No, I've been in prison 4 times, 4 or 5 times. I've had 8, I think, psychiatric mental health warrants served on me. That's what they do. It's a big propaganda campaign at you at the same time. And then in 2005, they started hitting me with the microwaves, electronic weapons for the torture and the telepathy and things like that. Now you see what
Talk a
they're
little
doing
bit
to
about
do.
that, Stan. What do you mean electronic waves and telepathy?
Well, in 2005, I filed my first federal lawsuit to try to bring closure and try to get uh, restored to whole, so to speak. I was extorted out of millions and millions of dollars, businesses, financial assets, real estate assets. So in 2005, when I filed my first federal lawsuit, they hit me with the microwaves, electronic weapons. The
So
same thing
what
that
was that
hit.
like? I mean, how did that, how do you know this? I mean, what happened?
Well, first of all, I became telepathic. Synthetic telepathy is a signature of some of these programs
Mhm.
where they use your mind. Uh, they sync your mind up to a computer, to other people. They can instill pain and inflict pain in any parts of your body. I'm crippled up. I need a wheelchair. That's all from the weapons. And like I said, the telepathy with me is 24/7. Hasn't stopped for a second since 2005.
It's a horror
And
show. I mean, it's
oh
terrible.
yeah.
I feel nervous talking to you about this. This is terrible.
Well, well, fortunately, I saw my father go through this, some of this. Now he received the electroshock therapy. They brainwashed him with electroshock, sent him on different missions overseas to the Middle East and Asia.
Mhm.
Uh, I think he was called called a covert courier, where they
Mhm.
hypnotize them, they send them over there and deliver messages to other spies. That way, if they get caught, they're not going to know anything. They're not going to be able to divulge any secrets or who they are really. And I have his passports that I saved, that he saved, to prove all that out. Now, in 2009, I was able to collect Social Security disability for being a victim of mind control. And they awarded me benefits going back to '05 when I declared that December of '05 is when I became full-time telepathic. Before that, it was on and off. So I was able to collect disability benefits. Now, I haven't been able to win any civil actions in court, but I have won judgments where, in the Third Circuit, where they allowed me to, in other words, all my cases were, attorneys tried to dismiss the cases, and I won in the Third Circuit. They sent them back for further litigation. Then I withdrew without prejudice because I don't have access to the courts.
You know, it sounds like you, hello,
Hello,
I'm
I'm
struggling with the
struggling
courts
with the quotes.
and getting
Yeah,
some.
guy.
All right, is that
All
better?
right,
I'm getting an
I'm
echo.
getting it.
Um, but it sounds to me like you were struggling with the courts ever since 1995 or 2005, I should say. And
Well, actually,
and
in
you're not.
'87, I tried to go to the courts, and back then they went after the attorneys. They just lined the attorneys up against me. I tried to hire.
Well, you're not.
Now
It
I blew
doesn't
the
look
whistle
to
in
me like you're
'87.
getting any justice in the courts. For you trying to get justice in the courts would have been like the Trump administration getting a hearing on voter irregularities, which of course the courts refused to hear.
Oh
And
yeah,
well, the thing is,
there's a lot of
I think you're
similarities.
barking up the wrong tree if you think you're going to get justice in the courts. You're putting yourself through something that's probably an exercise in futility because they're not going to do it. They're going to find a way to not hear your case. They're going to some technicality, just like what they did to President Trump. We're not going to ever get you before a judge in a courtroom with a public hearing where you'll have people actually cross-examining and listening to the evidence and checking it out. I don't think you're going to get that far because it's going to be shut down on technicalities before you get in the door. So I guess that my question to you, therefore, Stan, is for the sake of your, the use of your energy and the use of your time, I don't know, you might be better off just, writing a book and going
Oh,
forward in the media and forget about the courts because you're not going to get anywhere. It's like hitting your head against a wall.
well, that's not necessarily true. I'll tell you why. Because my cases involve antitrust litigation
Okay.
outside of the mind control and everything else. And I've been successful in keeping my cases going in the courts, and that's what keeps me alive. They tried to kill me several times. They killed my father and my brother, two brothers. My mom buried two sons, all questionable suicides that were fabricated and set up.
How did
So
it happen? What
I'm
happened?
staying alive by staying in the courts.
Okay. No,
It gives
then
me a
then
layer of protection.
then stay in the courts, I mean, it's just, I mean, if you're being persecuted in that way, gee, I mean, that's critical.
Yeah, if I wouldn't be in the courts, I'd be dead. There's no doubt about it.
So you
You
really
know, they
have, yeah.
they fill my house with toxic air on a regular basis. I have 4 exhaust fans I have to run. I mean, I gag, choke, spit up toxic air, poison.
Well, I hope you have some good air purifiers. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I used to use those, but now I just use exhaust fans.
okay. I mean, the subject is scary. It makes me feel paranoid. I just
You know, they can read anybody's mind they want, the NSA.
so
I mean, this stuff was
they have that kind of technology now.
pure remote neural monitoring. I mean, you've got commercial companies doing the same thing.
Hmm.
You got Elon Musk's company Neuralink. He reverse engineered the CIA chip that they use for mind control.
Oh, I don't doubt that for a minute. Um,
Yeah.
Stan, what can we do as average citizens who want to, live our lives as sovereign citizens and, expressing our opinions? And how can we counteract this as individuals? Can we?
Well, here's the problem. You look at Julian Assange,
Yes,
his case. Now, you know, he should be freed.
of course. He was a whistleblower.
Right. Now, I was curious to see how the Biden administration was going to handle it. And apparently, there's no change from Trump to Biden as far as whistleblowers. Trump was hard on whistleblowers,
Okay.
very hard, his administration. You know, he came out during his campaign in 2016 before he was elected and went on a record and said he thought Snowden should be executed.
Yeah.
So,
So
and you know, I don't
he
know
was
if you
no
know
better
this,
than
but
anyone else. I get it.
and Trump, you know, Trump went to military school
Sure. Yeah.
way back.
So
So,
then his administration was not any better than previous or present in terms of.
no, but the ironic thing is that it looks like his administration was subject to a lot of their tactics, which is kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of similarities between how I was treated and how he was treated with the FBI and things like that. And you know,
Well, the
he
FBI, I
complained
think
about being surveilled.
the FBI, and I mean, I would suggest that they were very political and very biased in terms of their anti-Trump positions and helping the basically have him removed from office. I mean, it seems to me, I would argue, and I'm not saying all of the agents. I'm talking about just the leadership. I mean, this guy Christopher Wray is just a protege of Comey and and
Yeah.
and Robert Mueller and other of these sort of highly political insider deep state corrupted type of people.
Yeah, it's a widely corrupted system. If you take out the conspiracy theory words and the paranoia words and look at the deep state as far as what actually goes on, there's a good video out called Shadowgate.
Mm-hmm.
It's by two whistleblowers, and it just gives you an example of how deep state this stuff is and how heavily surveilled society is without even knowing it. You
Oh,
know, they have,
that's
you
interesting. I
know,
mean, I think it goes all the way back. I mean, it's and if you talk about this now and you talk about the election, and I don't even want to talk about it because I'll be banned on YouTube. My only point is that if you criticize the past election, you are called a quote unquote conspiracy theorist in a very
Right.
scornful way, like that there's something wrong with you mentally for being, thinking there might have been something wrong politically with that election. But at the same time, the same people that are saying that were hatching what I would suggest is the biggest conspiracy theory in politics over the past maybe 50 years. And that is that Donald Trump was a spy for Russia,
Yeah,
and,
I do.
and that the Russians, put him in office. I mean, talk about denying an election. But
Yeah. I
but
mean,
that we'll put that aside. I mean, that's just an observation there.
no, I just, I have another outlook. Like I said, I grew up in a, you know, conducting business in a financial arena. I did business all over the world with when I helped pioneer the CD-ROM industry, and it's a global marketplace today.
Hmm.
We all do business with each other, and this mentality that Russia is always the enemy just doesn't work economically anymore. I mean, it's not realistic
No.
because it is such a global marketplace.
Well, yes, and I even in that context, I think that Trump tried to put America first in many ways, at least philosophically, by trying to balance the trade deficit and
Yeah, he did. You're
tariff
right.
as a way to protect American labor and American industry, which is something that is classic sovereign rights of any nation to do, and most
Well,
nations do this.
I think a good observation with Trump is that he was always the first to want to talk and meet with anyone, which previous administrations wouldn't do. I mean, as far
Okay.
as Kim Jong Un and North Korea, and he did a lot with North Korea. He got North Korea and South Korea together,
He did, and he also we should remember that even though
and the Middle East.
he didn't get everything. I mean, nevertheless, the North
No,
Koreans were lobbing missile tests over the Sea of Japan almost monthly for a while there.
yeah, oh, I know, and then weekly there for a while.
Yeah, and they've completely stopped that. So, a lot was done, and a lot was done in the Middle East, of course. Now we're back to the policy of war. Now we're up, as we speak, we're dropping bombs in Syria. We're ramping up the
Yeah, I know.
old the old policy that was originally talked about by historian Charles Austin Beard in the 1920s when he wrote the book Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace. That has been the American policy since World War One. Just constant involvement in these endless, senseless international wars as a way, I think, of weakening our sovereignty and expanding this kind of informal international order, what they now call the Great Reset.
Yeah, there's just so much money spent on weapons. It's such a huge industry.
Well, that's something you were very intimately
Huge
involved
industry.
in.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. In
All
fact,
taxpayer money.
in 1990, I was one of four CD-ROM manufacturing facilities in the country, in the world, really, in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was bidding on a Department of Defense contract. It was me, Sony, and Philips DuPont. Those two companies built CD technology, and one other company. And we were putting maps of the Middle East, digitizing them, and putting them on CD-ROMs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were a secure facility, so we could do classified work. And the Department of Defense cheated against me, the small guy. And
Mm-hmm.
I filed a protest, and Congressman Robert Walker was my liaison, and I beat the Department of Defense in a protest. We had to rebid the whole contract over. So I've been through contracts on both sides as a whistleblower and performing defense contracts.
So then you've served both sides of the aisle, so
Yeah,
to speak. And
yeah.
I mean, I just what you're going through is really, really troubling, and it's a
There's a
really,
lot of
really
people like me out there going through the same thing.
yes, there is. In fact,
A lot of people.
you mentioned MK Ultra. There are a lot of people who have done interviews about this, who went through it. Operation Butterfly and this Monarch and all that stuff. You know,
Right.
child sex trafficking and just really, really ugly stuff. I mean, one of the things that's troubling me right now with the Biden administration, and then Trump tried to stop this and did to an extent, is that they're lowering those prosecutions of sex traffickers. They're saying they're not going to deport foreign illegal aliens who are accused of sex trafficking and crimes. And we're just going to see more of it, especially now that children are coming across the border.
Yeah, that's a big problem. The sex trade.
Yeah.
That's a huge industry. The black market sex trade in kids and adults.
Yes.
With immigrants and things like that.
That's right. I mean, it's people who are obviously vulnerable and they can be taken advantage of.
Yeah, sex is a weapon. I mean, they use it against me. Sex.
Did they? Yeah. Look at. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein. Um, I don't think it's any secret. It's been reported by mainstream media that he was connected to the CIA and possibly other foreign intelligence agencies. These things
Yeah.
are gigantic secret societies that are legal and that function in the shadows. And I don't know what the deal is with that. We only know the tip of the iceberg.
No. Did you ever see the JFK speech on secret societies?
Yes, I have, and it's
That's a very good speech.
fantastic. And by the way,
Yeah.
I reported on it, republished it in my book on assassinations, and it's published on the JFK Library website. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This,
Yeah, I retweeted it a lot too.
oh yeah, I mean, this is something that that it's not hidden. I mean, it's out there, and Kennedy lays it out in clear and unequivocal terms. The dangers of secret societies and how they're functioning in a way that is contrary to the interests of the country. I mean, this isn't new. This is
Let me ask you a question. What do you think he was referring to? Who do you
well, I
think he was
mean,
referring to?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know,
I
but
don't know
you know,
either.
the military industrial, what Eisenhower called the military industrial complex. I mean, Eisenhower made those comments on the evening before he left office. You notice he
Yeah.
to the very, very end, when his final address, he warned the country about the quote military industrial complex. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is and who it is, but President Trump called it the deep state. Professor Michael Glennon of the Fletcher School calls it the double government. He wrote a book about this.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Shadow government.
Shadow government. Yeah, I mean, going back into the 19th century. I mean, I think it was President Martin Van Buren referred to the money power. So I mean, it's been referred to by different things.
Yeah. It's today the lines are so blurred because of social media and technology that it's hard to keep track of.
It is, and we can't know because we're not part of it. I mean, the only people who know that. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I often refer to Whittaker Chambers, who was a communist in the 1930s and who managed people inside the FDR administration for the Communist Party, and who eventually left the party because he became Christian and because he was upset that Stalin had allied himself with Hitler. That was the final straw for him. And he writes in his fantastic autobiography, Witness, about a quote conspiracy of gentlemen, he calls it. In other words, he's not saying it isn't a clique of people who sit around in a smoke-filled room and plot stuff. It's more kind of a group of high-level elites in the government, in business, in media, in banking, in culture, even at the church, who think alike and who have the same beliefs and who have almost a code means of communicating with each other. They don't have to sit around in meetings. They all know what to
Right.
do. They all believe
Yeah.
the same thing.
They're all trying to get to the same ends
Exactly.
using different means. Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, did you ever cover Devos?
No, no. What's the deal? No.
The annual
Oh,
meeting
I
they
mean,
have?
yeah, oh, yeah, sure. They
Davos is
have, well, they're the ones that coined the phrase the Great Reset, and I think it was early in 2019 they had a massive meeting that included world leaders, world
yeah.
business figures. I think that Bill Gates was there. I mean, not to mention names, but a lot of major figures, and this guy Schwab. has been pushing for this thing. And they put up a video of that meeting, which went viral immediately, and then they deleted it.
Yeah, I
But
saw. I think I saw it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But they're talking about the Great Reset, and these are people who, it's not that they want to have like a world government. I mean, I don't agree with maybe the John Birch Society's analysis on that. I think it's that they want an informal government of the world, not one where where they leave in place all the governments and they leave in place the trappings of government, but they informally and quietly run the show. I mean, in
Yeah.
countries around the world. And so you have to look at what they were about. And I think that the Great Reset, basically, they said that they want the United States to be subordinated and weakened so that we could become a sort of a province of the world. They want to see socialism. They want to, they're using environmental emergency fear tactics to get people to surrender, to stop eating meat. I don't know, different things like that.
Yeah. If you listen to Dr. Robert Duncan, he's a scientist and he helped develop some of these programs. He
Mhm.
worked for DARPA, CIA, Department of Justice, and he essentially says, the same thing about, all these secret societies and things like that, that they're actually dumbing down society. They dumb
Oh yeah, with
society down to the
education.
point where, yeah,
I mean, they've got, education has gone from a cognitive system where young people have learned how to think themselves
right.
and to, this is nothing new, behaviorism. My good friend, the late Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld, wrote a whole ton of books about this. He did many, many hundreds of hours with me on the air. I consider him to be my mentor. And he talked about how even as early as the 19th century with John Dewey, they were starting with, getting rid of phonics and getting rid of, systematic learning and replacing it with methodologies that lead to ADD and the disconnect and illiteracy and all kinds of social problems, and doing so deliberately, doing so
Yeah.
because they want to create what the Rockefellers called human resources, not human beings. We're like just resources, people that could punch a time clock and not think too much and be somewhat docile and be happy with entertainment and what the Romans called the bread and circus. And that that agenda of the corporatists like Rockefeller, combined with the leftists like John Dewey, who wanted a world socialism and a utopian, dumbed down ant colony, they worked together hand in glove to create this new type of person. And now we're seeing it. We're seeing the results of it. What do
Well,
you, yeah,
look at Pink Floyd's song "The Wall."
yeah,
That describes just what you said.
that's right. We don't need no
We
education.
don't need that, right? We don't need no mind control.
Yeah. What do you think, Stan, about the present pandemic? I mean, I'm listening to Steve Bannon in his show, The War Room, and he's got epidemiologists on. He's been banned from YouTube, so I don't even know. I probably shouldn't even post this show on YouTube. I probably won't. But he's been banned, and yet he has people on who are saying that the thing was created in a lab, and that it's a biological weapon, and that the political coordination around it is one that weakens the Western democracies, it weakens the United States. It causes people to live in a condition of virtual martial law. We're willing to give up our freedoms. You have to cover our faces. It's almost like a burqa when you go out. And what say you on that?
Well, the Chinese opened up the lab to inspectors, and they still haven't sourced the origin of the virus.
Well, according to
That
the
was
people
just a
that
couple
Steve
weeks ago.
Bannon has on, the virus is not behaving like a natural virus. It's not the same thing as the Spanish flu or other viruses which do happen. There are certain things about it. There's certain markers that indicate that it's something that is artificial.
Yeah, I mean the technology for nanoparticles and just the whole nanotechnology, raises questions in itself as far as the virus. And the other thing is that when we were talking about dumbing down society, how many people in this country get their news from social media rather than network news? I mean, that's a big problem as far as the virus, people not believing the virus is really real.
Well, it is very
Unless you
real. It's
watch,
killing people. I
it
mean,
is, but unless you watch network news, who knows what you're going to believe? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but of course the problem is that I mean, social media, and this is something that I'm struggling with because I do it, it is becoming increasingly censored. Let's just put it that way. I mean, if they can censor the sitting president of the United States and remove him from being able to send out Twitter, then they censor a poor schmo like me. I mean, it's sort of like you don't get you don't get this kind of information.
Well, here's the problem. You take the big tech companies, Google, Amazon, on, they're all defense contractors. And
That's
a
right.
lot of them are doing work for intelligence with clouds and things like that. And they
I've
control all
heard
the
this.
information.
Didn't that Google have a large portion of their business comes from renting their cloud to the Department of Defense?
Amazon, that's where Amazon's profits come from, the
Yeah.
defense side, AWS, as
Well,
opposed to the storefront.
yeah, I mean, and they took down Parler at a time when Parler was actually gaining on Twitter, and it was a much freer platform. And somehow they used the excuse that Parler had something on that advocated violence, which was untrue. And at the same time, Facebook and Twitter, I mean, they have child porn. I mean, they've got all kinds of stuff on there that's, really, really, nasty, and they don't care. They're making money.
Yeah, you look at between Facebook, Amazon, Google, and a couple other ones. They're the giants in the tech world, and they control all the information,
They do.
private information on people, and that's too small of a space. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
they control the means of
For that much data, and
right.
that's the problem. That's a problem.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
All you need to do is deal with 4 people, as far as censorship. You know what I mean? As opposed to maybe 20
no,
people
it's
competing.
very difficult, and it's very discouraging for people, like myself and others who are trying to conduct
Sure.
reviews. And I've already had, like, for example, my YouTube channel was I'm suspended from doing live interviews for 7 days because a guest of mine last week made a comment about the vaccine. He didn't say not to do the vaccine. Neither do I. I probably am going to do it. I know members of my family who have done it. It's fine. But he just brought up something that had to do with some of the after effects of it amongst a certain segment of the population, which I'm not going to name. And my opinion, my thoughts are that we should go forward, but we should do it with information. We should do it with being informed on any kind of medical procedure.
Oh,
And
most
so,
definitely.
but there's something about that subject that you cannot criticize
Yeah.
it. It makes me suspicious about maybe who's profiting from it, who has an agenda. It's kind of, when something is like that is censored, which was a very mild and normal statement. And so the response that I've had is that I'm setting up, I'm doing the best I can on a shoestring, but I've set up a separate website under my own name, charlesmoscowitz.com, where I have something like, at this point, about 30 different platforms besides YouTube that carry my broadcast every day, both live stream and archived. And so I'm hoping that if they pull one down, then there'll be the others, because I am determined to do this. I mean, I suppose
Yeah.
ultimately they could just pull the plug on the whole thing. I recognize that.
Well, back in college, one of my classes was the book 1984, the whole class, the whole
Yeah.
semester. And look where we're at. That was in 1980.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
We're living it.
they're talking about actually having, I mean, there's been a congresswoman from, I think, Washington State, who is recommending that there literally be a minister of truth.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
did you? Yeah, right. It's up right out of 1984, and
Yeah,
they want to ban, anyone who doesn't genuflect to the left from all social media. I mean, it's really that ugly. I don't think they're going to get away with that in this country, but I could be wrong. It's going to get, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And you have people like myself and like others who are literally starting to set up an alternative economy and alternative culture. Now that we know that Amazon is burning books and quietly deleting books from their site, and I'm the author of several books on Amazon, so I'm worried about that. People are finding alternative publishing houses, alternative vehicles. There's you've got Rumble, and you've got Minds, and you've got Gab, and you've got all these other things, and so I think what's happening is we're going to have like a vivisection of our culture in this country, with one side almost only communicating completely
Yeah.
off the grid. And I mean, ultimately, I think that there are going to be so many people who are going to be involved in it that they're going to co-opt the establishment, or the establishment is going to have to absorb them, one or the other. It's not possible that they continue, because ultimately these bigger venues have to make a buck, and if you have a growing number of people who are dropping out, they're going to have
Yeah.
they'll have to change. I hope. I mean, there's already something like 20 states that are now saying to Facebook and Twitter, and that they cannot censor conservative opinion. They can't take
Right.
on websites there's always like a glitch.
Yeah.
The glitch is always in their favor. It's like, I mean,
Right.
Senator
Always in
Marsha
their favor.
Blackburn, she had all of her social media taken off five weeks before the election for the U.S. Senate. She's the Republican nominee in Tennessee. She won a race anyway, but that, they said, "Oh, we're so sorry. This was a glitch." Really? It's always, it's always convenient. So,
And always in their favor. Well, it's funny that the truth is now like a commodity. You know what I mean?
as
In today's
opposed to like
society,
just being what it is. Yeah,
as opposed to being what it used to be, the truth. I mean, now somebody has to own the truth, or censor it, or filter it, or review it. It's crazy.
absolutely. So, Stan, anyway, getting back to your case, I mean, I'm hoping for success for you. You've been out there, you've suffered, your family has been terrible, has undergone terrible situations, including possible murder. Um, where are you now, and where are you going to be? Where are you going with it?
Well, as long as I'm alive, I'm fine. I know how to make do. I mean, I make the best of it.
Mm.
I have interests that I still pursue, and I'm totally isolated from everyone, relatives, everyone. I mean, that's part of the game.
People have cut off contact with you, or you just for this?
Well, no, they're all part of the propaganda campaign. All they do is lie about me and tell tell everyone I'm crazy
I
and
see.
treat me like I'm crazy. You know what I mean? And with my resume, I mean, I started in computers in 1975, aced every computer class in high school and college, had three programming languages in college, aced them all, Fortran Basic and COBOL. And 1975 is when Steve Jobs and Bill Gates started. We all started about the same time. So I know technology.
Sorry, yeah. Well, I hope that you stay in the game in that score, and continue to develop your technological skills, because the future, I think, is going to be outside of the big tech. It's going to be people creating independent entities. I mean, one of the pioneers in that would be Alex Jones, and I'm not here to endorse Alex Jones. I think
Yeah, I know Alex what happened. I don't know in person, but I
no, but
know
he's
the
and
situation very
he's
well.
made some major mistakes, and he's had the response to that has been lawsuits, and he should pay the price.
Yeah,
However, he's been purged. He was the first one to be purged, and his response was that he's built his own network completely independent of any of the cloud or anything else, and he's now going forward with that and building it. So, maybe I mean, he's got the resources to do it, but maybe that's like the canary in the mine shaft.
yeah,
He doesn't express popular opinions for the establishment, but he's moving forward, and he's developing what I'm talking about, this alternative universe that we're developing.
Well, that's how this country was built. The Industrial Revolution was like that. Entrepreneurs,
Yes,
people inventing things, you
absolutely.
know, and we can't let that
Absolutely.
go. And that's what they're trying to, you know, put down.
They're trying to deindustrialize the country.
Sure.
I mean, this was the American system of Alexander Hamilton and Henry Clay. In fact, I'm having Anton Chatkin come up on the show, who's written a book about this. Good guy, good historian. And it's being dismantled. And Trump tried to bring it back. It's
Yeah.
I think even FDR tried to bring it back. It's not just this isn't a Democrat Republican thing. I mean, this is an American thing.
Right. It's an American thing. Yeah, exactly.
So Stan, where do you want to let our listeners and viewers know anything about where they can help you or websites or anything like that?
They can go to my Twitter page. It's under Advanced Media Group. And I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Stan J. Caterbone. Those two, I had a website. They shut it down. They essentially stole my domain name when I was in prison in 2019. So that I don't even try to get back to it. I'm so hacked. Every electronic device I have is hacked. Uh, I wipe my computers. I could wipe them every other day. They're hacked up so much. I lose functionality and things like that. But my Twitter page and LinkedIn are the best ways to get to the information.
Okay. Well, listen, Stan, stay in touch with me, and we should keep me posted on any developments. And
Yes, I will, certainly.
we'll talk again.
All right. Thank you very much, Charles.
All right, Stan Caterbone, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.